Hello and welcome to another video from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. Today I'm joined by Neale to look at the best captaincy options for Game Week 24. Neale, welcome. How are you?
I'm not too bad, yeah. How's things?
Yeah, good. I'm looking forward to the next game week. I've had a good Game Week 23, but often that means a bad game week's in store. But
Yeah,
hopefully not, because I have the man we're going to talk about first. Everyone's got him. Well, 50% of the game have got him. This is the guy that we think is going to be, well, I think, let's find out what you think. I think it's going to be the best captaincy option for this week. It's Mo Salah. He's at home to Leicester. What do you think? Am I right in thinking that he's just the best option this week?
yeah.
Okay,
We
fair
just
enough.
end it there.
End of broadcast.
Yeah, they're actually on paper. There are a number of decent alternatives this week, and we'll discuss them all later in this video. But why would you back against him? I think, especially given the not just his returns of late. So there's the 6 double-digit holes in the last 8 game weeks, I think it is. But his effective ownership, the fact that he's consistently captained by over 1 million managers every week. His actual ownership's up to 50% now, and there'll be a lot of active managers within that. Because I think at his nadir, he dipped to around about 32%, 33% at one point. So he's had a 17% hike in ownership, and they're all obviously active managers. So yeah, I swallowed my pride last week and got him back in after the disaster that was the Salah exit of game week 16, and I feel a lot better for it. I mean, I saw a tweet on I think after he scored 2 at the weekend, saying having Salah on your team is just like having a big warm blanket on a fantasy weekend. It's just the comfort and knowledge that you're going to get points. So yeah, I've got Aubameyang, I've got people like Pogba and Rushford in my team, all on paper viable captaincy alternatives this week. I'm captaining Salah, no question about it. I mean, I can justify that with stats. I've got a whole list of stuff here. We might as well get them out in the open. We've got last 6 game weeks, joint highest for penalty box touches, which is always a good sign. That's probably a result of him playing as the sort of the central striker now rather than out wide, since Klopp's adopted this 4-2-3-1. His XGI, which for the uninitiated is expected goal involvement. So this is when Opta calculate the quality of your shots with your key passes and base your predicted output on that. So he's top of XGI no matter where you set the parameters. I've done the last 4 weeks, last 6 game weeks, last 8 game weeks, the start of December. He's top of every column. So yeah, the stats back it up. My gut backs it up. His FPL form backs it up. Actually, he's not sort of head and shoulders above everybody else in terms of number of shots, for example. So we'll discuss the 2 front runners in that regard later in the program. It's 2 Man United players, but it's the quality of his chances. The fact that he's getting into those danger zones. I think the last 6 games he's had 4 shots from inside the 6-yard box, which is, I think, joint highest. Now that's a new sort of string to his bow as well, because last season when he was playing out on the right, we saw him score a lot of spectacular goals, cutting in, off the flank, curling shots in from outside the box. He's now more of a predatory striker, but he's still getting the returns. He's still showing he's got a knack for that. So yeah, I will unquestionably, and this is events over the weekend. I mean, Liverpool haven't got a game; they're out of the FA Cup.
That's another big plus, isn't it? Because we know we won't be rotated. I've got a couple of other things to add in, not that we need them. Over the last 6 away matches, Leicester, who travel to Anfield, are the second worst team in terms of conceding shots in the box. Cardiff are actually the worst away over the last 6, but Leicester. So they're and of course we know that they shipped 4 goals against Wolves away last time out. So we know that they're for the taking. As you've said, Salah is the man to do the taking. I just wanted to mention a couple of other players from this fixture. Firmino and Mane. I think they're holding their own at the moment, and something we spoke about on the Scoutcast about doubling up as well. if for some reason someone out there hasn't got Salah, but they do have Firmino and Mane, I think they are also very good options. But of course, I think Salah's the main man. Over the last 4 game weeks, Firmino is top amongst Liverpool assets for shots, 11 to Mane's 10 and Salah's 9. And in terms of shots in the box, Mane and Salah are equal on 9, and shots on target, they're both equal on 7 as well, which is something that you pointed out in an article, a digest article that you did this week. So I do urge people to have a look at that. There's more data there on other Liverpool assets there, which is just very useful in general. But it's got to be Salah for the captaincy. Yeah. Now, someone else you mentioned, Aubameyang, another great fixture on paper. This is the game, their home game with Cardiff as well. Yeah, I mean, he looks great. Let's just forget Salah for now. Is Aubameyang a good captaincy option just in his own right?
He ought to be, given the nature of the fixture. Cardiff's had, until last weekend when they got beat off Newcastle, they looked quite good against sides outside the top 6. So I think that they sort of held their own. I think I wrote in advance of Gameweek 23 that they'd conceded 16 and 15 games against sides outside the top 6. But against those big 6 sides, the Champions League chasing clubs, their record is woeful. So they've played 7, lost 7, conceded 25. They shipped 3 to Arsenal at home earlier in the season. Now, we should just say, because of the very sort of sad events over the past couple of days, I would expect the game to go ahead, given what happened earlier in the season with the Leicester helicopter crash. Now, we're recording this on Thursday, so we don't know any more about the latest developments. But yeah, it's still 5 days before the game. There's nothing to suggest it would be rearranged, but it's something just to keep an eye on anyway over the next couple of days. Back to more trivial matters. Aubameyang. Last 6 game weeks he's sort of, his season's flipped. So earlier in the year when he was banging them in, we sort of defined the underlying stats. He had a very high goal conversion rate, but he wasn't really backing up his goals with sort of convincing underlying KPIs. So that has sort of turned on its head the past couple. So he's blanked in 3 of the last 4. Over the last 6 game weeks, now there's something we've got on the Fantasy Football Scout members area called XG non-penalty.
Okay, what's that all about?
Yeah, it's so we know what expected goals are. It's we discussed it earlier about where to calculate what you should be scoring based on the quality of your chances. Now, XG non-penalty strips away spot kicks. So the penalty kicks are, generally speaking, a great chance to score. You'll sort of like Salah's, for example. He scored 3 penalties in the last 6 weeks or so. And if you take that into consideration, that seriously affects his XG. When he's still got a good rating, but it does put a significant dent in it. So yeah, Aubameyang, his expected goals without penalties over the last 6 game weeks is better than any other player. So 4.25. He's spurned a lot of decent chances of late, which I think will probably put a lot of people off. And there is always the risk that he will either get dropped or moved to a reverse out of position. So on Saturday when Arsenal played Chelsea, they played a 4-3-1-2 or a 4-4-2 diamond. So Aubameyang and Lacazette played up front together. Now, that worked well against Chelsea. I think it gave them more solidity in midfield, and it helped to sort of negate Jorginho, who's sort of at the heart of most of what they do. I think that you might see a system change against Cardiff. Now, I wouldn't have thought they'd be playing 3 defensive midfielders against Cardiff. They've done that against Brighton on Boxing Day. I think they played the same formation. Had 7 shots on goal. It didn't really work. So you might see a change in a formation to something like either a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-4-3 or a 4-2-3-1. So there is the possibility of Aubameyang not even playing as a central striker against Cardiff. He could be out on the left flank. Okay. That's just something to consider anyway. That's just my own sort of interpretation. But yes, stats-wise, he's right up there. I think if Salah didn't exist, If it were in a game week where he suddenly got injured, I think he's probably the next best option.
Yeah, he does. I noticed over the last 6 home matches, particularly at home as well. The last 6 home matches, only Mitrovic has had more close range shots in the box than Aubameyang as well. So he's. But the crucial thing is he's delivering as well. So over those 6 home matches, Aubameyang's scored 5 and he's had 3 assists as well, which is great. That's a great return there. I just wanted to mention, I've already mentioned it, the only team that are worse than Leicester away from home in terms of conceding shots in the box is, of course, Cardiff. In fact, it's quite a big difference. It's 77 shots in the box they've conceded over the last 6 away matches, and Leicester's the next worst with 62. So it's quite a big gulf there. They're in a league of their own in sheer awfulness in terms of their defence away. Let's have a look at Manchester United as well. So I put a picture of Paul Pogba up. But of course, there are other assets there, most notably Marcus Rashford as well. They have another team with a good fixture at home to Burnley. They look good captaincy shouts as well, Pogba and Rashford. Yeah,
they do. I think we alluded earlier in this video about how Salah's not near the top 4 overall attempts on goal over the last 6 game weeks. Now that table is headed by Pogba and Rashford.
Ooh.
So between them, they have had 56 shots in the last 6 game weeks. And Rashford joined top for shots inside the box during that time with Aubameyang. Pogba is top for shots on target during that time. Rashford second. So this 6-week period actually coincides with when Solskjaer took charge. So this is during his tenure exclusively. So you can see the improvement in numbers that they've had since the Mourinho days. Again, in a game week without Salah, both very good options. Is it too early to be playing catch up and chasing differential captains? I think so.
This was something we discussed on the Scoutcast. It was something that Az had tried to do and without much success. It's something I'm not keen on, and it was something that David was mentioning in an interview with Simon March in the Big Questions feature, in which Simon March was not keen on it. Now, Simon March, for those who don't know, has won it in 2014-15, so he knows exactly what it takes to win FPL. And he says, no, don't go down that route. Just go for the sensible options. But some people don't listen, and some people want to do their own thing, which is fair enough. And if they did, then you're right. Paul Pogba, Marcus Rashford, Aubameyang, they're all great options. And if you own all of them as well, it's absolutely great news because you've got the top options there. I just want to just finally mention about Burnley as well. Just to recap, they're no longer whipping boys. We can put that to bed now. They're kind of mid-table for conceding big chances and shots in the box away from home recently. Prior to Joe Hart being dropped, they were the worst for everything. Whatever metric you could look at in terms of defence, they were the worst. Apart from saves, obviously. Joe Hart was very good at getting them, and some of them, but some of them he didn't save. But that's Bournemouth for an away team are currently the whipping boys for away teams as well, so alongside the likes of Cardiff that we've mentioned. Let's have a look at Man City as well, because once again, a bit like Manchester United, they've got a variety of options there, and I think another team with a great fixture away to Newcastle. There's potential there for scoring. If someone was minded to captain a Man City asset, which would be the best one?
It's difficult to say at this point. I think because we are recording this earlier than usual, because of the unusual build-up to game week 24. The deadline's on Tuesday. Yeah. So we'll have a very busy Monday with team news and stuff like that. We're yet to see Man City play in the FA Cup this weekend, so we don't know what the lineup's going to be. That might tell us or give us a clue whether, for example, Aguero or Jesus would start. We had Aguero play 60-odd minutes last night in the Carabao Cup. Mm-hmm. If rotation continues, maybe Jesus will come in this weekend. I would expect Mahrez to get another game again in the FA Cup, and then probably Sterling and Sane come back in. Now, I've just written up the scouting notes for the dead rubber of last night's second leg tie, and Mendy came back. Yes. He made a half-hour substitute appearance. I think he's probably still some way off match fitness. The fact that he only got half an hour, he's been out since game week 12, I think. So he might see more minutes in the FA Cup. I'd be surprised if he started in game week 24. But that's something to be wary about. If you're, for example, we've done this topic to death, but like if you're a Sane owner, for example, where there is a definite link between Mendy's availability and Sane's game time. At least there has been up to this point. I was looking at sort of Sterling, who's sort of going under the radar a little bit. He's not even the most popular Man City midfield asset. That is Sane, and I think probably not in many people's shake-up for captaincy this week. Now he's joined top with Salah for penalty box touches over the last 6 game weeks, so he's getting in the danger areas. He's still, in and around the box, and when you watch him, when you sort of the eye test, he does look threatening every time he gets the ball. Sometimes he runs up blind alleys and is crowded out. But I had to look at his shot count over that same period. So yes, I think it's joint top for penalty box touches. Now for actual shots on goal, 54 players have had more shots than Raheem Sterling over the last 6 game weeks. So he's not really converting those touches into efforts on goal. Now, playing in that team, he still has the chance of getting one chance and scoring, because the quality of the chances are generally quite good. We saw the goal against Huddersfield where he was effectively on the goal, like, empty net. Sane whipped the ball across. We've seen that combination so many times. But he's not really firing on the underlying stats front. I think this was his first double-digit haul in a couple of months. I think I'd leave alone that. And I wouldn't urge people away from Man City assets, because that's a foolish thing to do. They've scored 3 in the last 2 games without breaking sweat. But after this week, they've got 2 games against fellow Big Six clubs, and then they've got a blank in game week 27. So I personally am probably going to shirk them. For people who do have Sterling and Sane this week, I think still there are better captaincy options.
They're the two. They're the 2 you picked out rather than Aguero.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I wouldn't be selling them by any stretch of the imagination.
I just want to add in. So I just looked at the last 3, just a real basic thing. How many points have they got the last 3? And Sane has got 30 points, so he's averaging 10 points last 3 starts, and Sterling with 21. So considering he's not as, the underlying stats are saying he's not shooting as much as perhaps he used to, or other players, he's still averaging 7 points a game. So both of them, I think, are captaincy candidates. But yeah, it's hard to bet against Salah this week.
And I think Newcastle away, yes, City have got the potential to go and put 3 or 4 goals past anybody, but Newcastle's this season have proved time and time again that if they're not going to get a point from the match, they'll make life hellishly difficult for a Big Six team. I think they've been beaten 2-1, I think 5 times by one of the top 6. So they're always in the game. With Man City was one of those games at the Etihad. And they tend to play with a back 5. There'll be a lot of a lack of attacking ambition. I think it'll be a training ground exercise and an attack v defence. I don't think it'll be an open game by any stretch.
Just looking at the rest of the fixtures as well. Any other names spring out? I mean, once again, hard to look past Salah, but if someone is feeling particularly maverick and wanting to go for more unusual captaincy, any names spring out?
You'd have to be maverick, wouldn't you, to overlook Salah? I think this week. I think well, Spurs v Watford on paper a couple of weeks ago would have been a decent fixture, because if you'd had Kane for this game, Watford's defence, you've highlighted this a couple of weeks ago. Last 6 game weeks, most big chances conceded, most shots on target conceded. That's Watford. The problem is who's going to line up for Spurs. We don't know. They could potentially have Son back. Now South Korea's in Asian Cup action tomorrow, I think it is, against Qatar. Now if they get eliminated, there's a chance Son could be back for game week 24, but
that's a big if. I mean, my rudimentary knowledge of Asian football tells me South Korea should walk that on paper.
They should do. Look, I think from what I've seen, they've had quite a decent tournament so far. But I think you'd fully expect them to progress. So which leaves, very slim pickings for Spurs. Ali's out for 3 weeks, I think. Kane's still out. We saw Llorente against who was it, Fulham.
Yeah, not good.
He's just it shouldn't be too hard on the guy because he's barely featured at all, but he's just lacking any kind of confidence.
Yeah. And Mora should be
back, yeah.
And Lamela, we don't know. Lamela could be.
Lamela should be, yeah. It's just whether he can string together a series of games. I think he's underlying.
Yeah, because I was thinking Eriksen ordinarily would be the only one left, but who's he? He's the creative force, but who's he passing to? And that's.
And where's he playing as well? He may be playing sort of deeper. Yeah.
Where's he playing? I heard that Sissoko could be back. I mean, this is something we'll discuss a bit more next week for our team news. But Sissoko being back is good news because that means Eriksen is less likely to have to play in that kind of central or defensive midfield role. There's no point going further down to the dregs, I think, for captaincy. It's Salah, but there are some other intriguing options as well, of which Aubameyang and assets from the two Manchester sides are probably the best ones there. We haven't mentioned Chelsea. Now, someone I wanted to just flag up here, because not very popular around these parts, is Eden Hazard, who has a phenomenal track record against Bournemouth. He's often highlighted them as a team where he visualizes his goals against them. I don't know. It's one of those teams that he just likes to score against. So he is an option, but I think it's going to take a brave fantasy manager to put the armband on Eden Hazard anyway. But also when you have so many other options there. But I just wanted to mention him because no doubt we'll get Chelsea fans saying, "Why didn't you mention Hazard? He's great against Bournemouth," and he is indeed, and he is an option, but not the best option. No. But Neil, thanks so much for joining me. Good luck with the game week, and thanks a lot. And I'll see you next week for our next video, which we'll be looking at the team news ahead of game week 24.
Okay, yeah. See you then. All the best.